Karoline Leavitt sat at the edge of the panel table, cool and sure of herself. With cameras rolling and the country watching, she leaned forward and delivered a line she'd said many times before, but this time, it would cost her everything. People like Jasmine Crockett make politics emotional instead of effective. She said it with a smirk, confident, careless. Maybe she thought it would be just another throwaway jab, the kind that makes headlines for a few hours and disappears by morning, but that moment didn't disappear. It caught fire. What Karoline didn't realize was that her words would explode across the internet, spark a legal battle worth $80 million, and end her career in front of the same audience she once controlled. Sitting across from her, Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Jasmine was the kind of leader who carried weight in her silence, calm, measured, and unapologetically firm. While Karoline's power came from noise and followers, Jasmine's came from something much older. Purpose. It was a live political roundtable in Austin, Texas. A mix of lawmakers, media voices, and legal experts, all ready to debate the usual headlines. But what happened next wasn't usual. It was sharp. It was raw. And it hit something deeper. Beneath the surface, this wasn't about politics. It was about who gets to speak, who gets to be respected, and what happens when someone refuses to be disrespected again. This isn't just a story about two women trading words. This is about what happens when one of them finally stands up and says, "Enough is enough." The room was calm. Until it wasn't. The conversation had moved to the pressures women face in Congress, and Jasmine Crockett, without raising her voice, laid down a truth that hit deep. If I'm firm, I'm aggressive. If I'm composed, I'm weak. She didn't flinch when she said it. No anger, no show. Just facts, shaped by experience. Then came the interruption. Karoline Leavitt leaned in, smirked like she had just waited for this moment, and fired back. Maybe stop playing the victim. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said them. Sharp, smug, like she expected applause. But instead, silence swallowed the room. The kind of silence that says everything without a single sound. Eyes shifted. Postures stiffened. Even the host hesitated, unsure whether to cut to break or let it play out. Jasmine didn't blink. She took a breath, looked straight ahead, and delivered her answer like a quiet storm. I carry generations. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. No yelling, no clapback, but those words landed with a weight no shouting could ever match. That single moment lit a fire outside the studio. Within hours, clips flooded TikTok and Twitter. Millions watched. Some cheered, some mocked. Hashtags started trending. Supporters praised Jasmine for staying calm. Critics twisted her words. Influencers dropped takes. Reaction videos popped up every 5 minutes. Everyone had something to say, but no one could look away. Then came the media flood. Conservative platforms tried to protect Karoline. They spun it as bravery, as truth-telling, but it didn't stick. On the other side, progressive voices pointed out the obvious. This wasn't about tough love. It was about tone. It was about power. And it was about race. The debate wasn't about policy anymore. It became about identity, dignity, and what people are allowed to say when they look a certain way. Jasmine, without lifting a finger, had started a national conversation. But Karoline didn't step back. She stepped in further. In her next interview, Karoline called Jasmine's reply scripted victorhead, said she was tired of people making everything about race and feelings. She thought this would rally her base. Instead, it opened a new door, one she wouldn't be able to close. Old clips and screenshots began to surface. Tweets, podcast segments, past interviews, all with the same cold pattern. Dismissive comments about women of color, hints of bias, sarcastic jabs that didn't age well. Suddenly, this wasn't about one bad moment. It was a pattern. And Jasmine, she didn't go on a media tour. She didn't fire back online. Instead, her legal team made a quiet but serious move. A lawsuit. $80 million in damages. The paperwork called it what it was. Character assassination, racial defamation, targeted harm. This isn't about politics, Jasmine's team said. This is about accountability. Karoline thought this would be just another internet story that fades after a week. But she was wrong. This wasn't a story anymore. It was a reckoning. Karoline's world didn't fall apart all at once. It cracked piece by piece, and fast. First came the silence. Not from her haters, but from the people she counted on. Her public relations team quietly backed away. One day, they were taking calls on her behalf. The next day nothing. Brands she once partnered with began cutting ties. Companies didn't want her face anywhere near theirs. The same sponsors that once fought to have her name on their banners now removed her in hours, afraid to be pulled down with her. Behind the scenes, conservative allies started distancing themselves. Nobody said it out loud, but it was clear they were watching the blowback and choosing self-preservation. Even those who agreed with her didn't want the mess. Karoline, once the loudest voice in the room, now felt like she was shouting into a void. Meanwhile, Jasmine didn't need to do anything. She didn't post rants, didn't chase headlines. She just stayed still. And that silence spoke louder than anything. Civil rights leaders showed up with real support. Community groups shared her message. Commentators started calling her not just a congresswoman but a symbol of quiet strength. The same media that once overlooked her was now quoting her, showing clips of her calm response on repeat. And then Karoline made a mistake. She couldn't undo. Feeling pushed into a corner. She appeared on a small YouTube show with a host known more for drama than journalism. It wasn't polished. It wasn't scripted. It was rand. Karoline slipped. When asked about Jasmine, she rolled her eyes and said, "Her whole brand is being a victim." That single sentence set off a second wave. The clip hit Twitter like lightning. In minutes, it was everywhere. But this time, it wasn't just people debating. It was personal. Comment sections exploded. Karoline Leavitt is finished started trending. TikTok creators broke down her entire media history, line by line. Podcasts that once supported her now picked apart her fall like a case study. And the worst part, the audience that once defended her had gone quiet. Leaked emails from her own team hit the press next. Memos showed they'd warned her, told her her words might be seen as racially loaded. She ignored it. One message even read, "We can't keep spinning these comments. They're not playing well anymore." People saw through her apologies. They weren't heartfelt. They were scripted, panicked, and too late. And while all of this chaos spun around Karoline, Jasmine finally spoke, but just once. It wasn't a thread. It wasn't an emotional speech. It was one clear message delivered with care. "I didn't sue for attention. I sued because there has to be a cost for disrespect." That was it. No drama. No shouting. And yet, it hit harder than anything Karoline had said in weeks. Because the truth had been sitting there the whole time. Now, no one could deny it. When the pressure hit its highest, Karoline's team made one last move. A quiet offer behind closed doors, millions of dollars in exchange for Jasmine's silence. A quick settlement. No trial. No more headlines. Just a check and a signed agreement to move on. But Jasmine didn't even flinch. She turned it down. No drama, no speech, just one clear answer. "This isn't about money." That was the moment everyone realized Jasmine wasn't here for attention. She wasn't chasing a payout or trying to win a social media war. She stood her ground because it was right. And the message that followed was louder than any lawsuit ever could be. Karoline, once everywhere, suddenly disappeared. No press tour, no interviews, no podcast invites. Her name, once a hot booking for political shows, became a warning sign. Even her old supporters stopped saying her name out loud. She wasn't controversial anymore. She was just finished. Quietly, she stepped back from public life. But the silence around her wasn't peaceful. It was cold, empty. On the other side, Jasmine's presence only grew. Not through flashy headlines or victory laps, but through impact. Local leaders started lifting her up as a symbol of calm strength. Schools shared her story in classrooms. Young girls who once thought they had to yell to be heard started to see something different. They saw that stillness could be powerful too. Even lawmakers began to take notice. Her case got brought up in real conversations about the line between opinion and harm. Suddenly, political panels and newsrooms weren't just talking policy, they were asking better questions. Who gets interrupted? Who gets labeled as too emotional? Who gets to speak without being mocked? This wasn't just a personal win, it became a shift, a turning point. Jasmine never set out to change the culture. But in standing firm, that's exactly what she did. She proved something simple, something real. You don't need to shout to win. Her silence became her strength. And the world listened not because she performed, but because she refused to perform at all. So, if this story moved you, if it made you stop and think about how words can hurt and how calm can cut deeper than anger, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Talk about it. Pass it forward. Because in a world that rewards loud voices, real strength still speaks without shouting.